Beliau merupakan dekan di Fakulti Pendidikan dan Bahasa Moden Universiti Utara Malaysia. Dengan itu, dipersilakan Yang Berusaha Profesor Madya Dr. FAUZIAH Abdul Rahim untuk menyampaikan ceramah yang bertajuk Alternative Assessment. Dipersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat sejahtera. Terima kasih pengurusi majlis, terima kasih kepada Prof Harmi dan juga Yuniza kerana menjemput saya ke sesi ini bersama-sama tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Saya tahu lah sekarang ni kita kena SOP and all that. Saya tak boleh bercakap kalau pakai mask tu, saya rasa nanti mesti lepas 10 minit saya pingsan. So I'm sorry if I'm not wearing the mask, but you all go ahead and wear your mask, okay? And before we begin, nak memohon supaya saya boleh guna dua-dua bahasa. Sebab saya ni tak boleh guna bahasa Melayu lama dan juga bahasa Inggeris lama. Dia macam dah biasa campur-campur, tak tahulah pasal apa kan. Maybe that's the permanent heat damage that I got after doing my PhD. Right, so yeah, that's Sintok. So, sebab saya tak pernah datang ke Yuniza. So ini kali pertama saya datang ke sini, so sebab tu saya bawa the love from Sintok to the bumi of Yuniza. So that's basically how it looks like. My faculty is somewhere on the left side. So I come from the Pusat Pengajian Pendidikan dan Bahasa Moden. I'm given the topic alternative assessment, but I've decided to add a little bit apart from alternative assessment, which is for 21st century higher education, because that's what we are, that's what we are in. Why is it still relevant in the 21st century? So we're going to talk about that. So a little bit about me. I stopped the MC for the long biodata that she has, because I don't like listening to my own biodata. I'll just introduce myself. I'm actually currently the Dean of the School of Education and Modern Languages. Please pray with me that we will have our school's name changed because to School of Education, full stop, because the Modern Languages has transferred to another faculty. Before that, I was the director of the University Teaching Learning Center, so I do understand and concur with all the feelings that Prof Harmi is facing right now, because I've been there, done that, and I thought I could have a break. But that was a very, very short break in 2018. But it was a lovely break, only to know that because of whatever happened in 2018, I had to become the dean then. Itu kadang-kadang tak bagus juga kalau dapat benda-benda ni kan, sebab lepas tu dia suruh kita jaga pula. So before that, I met Prof Harmi in ACAP very long time ago, when I was actually one of the trainers for learning engagement motivation course, and following suit when they changed the directors and changed the direction, I was also involved in two types of training under ACAP, which is collegial management and coaching and mentoring for excellence. Right, alamak, silap. So basically, the outline of this session, I understand that I have about, well, until 11 to discuss or maybe to share with you some basic understanding of alternative assessment and why it's the importance of understanding it in the 21st century higher education. Now, in this session, nampak macam session yang you akan duduk mendengar dan I akan berdiri bercakap. But feel free to ask me and stop me at any point of time, okay? Because if I don't finish these slides, the slides are already in the what you call this, laptop, and you can have the slides and you can read it on your own. But more importantly, I would love to hear what's in your mind so that we can get it all sorted before we leave this hall, yeah? So, what is alternative assessment? That's where you have to tell me. Now, if you do you have handphones? I'm sure you have, kan? 21st century people must have handphone, right? All you need to do is just to go to your, the website address, type www.menti.com, like that, www.menti.com. The minute you do that, it will ask you for the code. The numbers are the code. Jangan letak dekat Google ya. Dia kena letak dekat dia punya address tu, yang HTTP tu. Put it there, www.menti.com. View baru nak buka komputer. Handphone pun boleh. The minute you have the Mentimeter punya tu, letakkan kod. Dia ada number-number dekat kod tu, so write the code 3276447. So those who have completed, well done. Those who are not there yet, there, www.menti.com. Oh dah, okay. Okay. Kalau atas jatuh kat dalam ni, jangan gelak tau. Okay. Are you okay? Okay. Good. Are you alright dah? Oh, besar betul dewan ni ya. Yep. So the minute you have the question, answer. Betul lah. The minute you have the question, please answer. Then submit. Are you okay? Malah yang nak pergi ke belakang. Mesti terjatuh sekali nanti. Banyak wire. Alright. Anyone has not entered yet? The girls are fast. The boys? The men? Are you okay? Okay. Right, let me try. Okay, kenapa benda tu dia macam duk pusing-pusing lagi? Because people are still submitting. Yes. What's the code just now? Tu 3276447 at the top. 3276447. Okay, anyone here has used, dah pernah guna Mentimeter? Angkat tangan. Dah pernah. Patutlah laju. I should have not gone there. Ask you all to help your friends sebelah sana. Should have gone belah sini. Okay, those yang dah tahu will understand why that thing is moving lah. The thing is actually changing is because people are still submitting. Alright, so if people submit 3 words that are the same, it goes larger and larger and larger. Maksudnya benda tu important to you lah. So when I ask you what are the 3 words that come to your mind about alternative assessment? What are the 3 words that come to your mind yang dalam hall ni lah? Assignment, presentation, quiz. Tak tahulah yang tu kan? Betul ke yang tu alternative assessment? Okay, what else? What other words yang tak nampak dekat situ yang catch your eye? Anybody yang rasa macam, oh interesting, I never thought of that, but it's there. Portfolios, I heard somebody say portfolio here. One word that you never thought of it, but that's interesting, I never thought of it that way. What word? Flexible. Okay. Lagi? The men are awfully quiet. You all dah makan nasi dagang ke? Ke sebab baru makan? Awfully quiet. Can you hear the ladies? Thank you, ladies. The men? Any word yang macam you find, that's interesting. Sorry? Fun. Yeah. That should be the biggest word. Unfortunately, people don't see assessment as fun. But alternative assessment has a lot of potential to be fun. Fun for you to mark. Yang tu very important. Fun for your students to do. Any other words? Sorry? Interactive, okay? Interactive with the students. Why do you think that alternative assessment has that potential of interacting with your students?
That means that you are interacting with the student to assess them, to guide them, to make sure that they're on the right path of what they're supposed to achieve the CLO.
That's the reason why you have your presentation there, your assignment there. So you're trying to tell me that while you are doing alternative assessment, it's an opportunity for your students and yourself to interact with each other, to give feedback. Bukan like interact, how's the sky, how's the moon, how's the weather, but more about how did you, think about the assignment, how did you present what your ideas and all that. So it's a form, it's a platform for you to be able to interact with your students. What about quiz? Ni ramai ni yang kata quiz ni. How is quiz an alternative assessment? What form of interaction will you have when you have quiz compared to presentation? What possible type of interaction? Kalau quiz, selalunya kita cakap macam mana? Out of 10 questions, you got 8 correct. Please read up. Habis cerita. Presentation? Would the same kind of feedback you give for presentation? Okay, this is awfully very quiet. I'm actually very nervous here. I'm sure when it's presentation, you don't just say good, kan? I'm sure when they have the presentation, you surely will say something, right? But compared to quizzes, which is actually 8 over 10, or you did that one right and got that one wrong, for presentation it will be more than that, right? It will be very qualitative in nature. What parts of your ideas that's still not helpful for the listeners or the audience to understand what you're trying to say. Am I right? So it is more of the qualitative kind of feedback compared to quizzes. I'm not saying that quizzes are bad. I'm saying that sometimes when you don't use it the right way, quizzes will just stop at you got 6 over 10 or 2 over 10, keep up the good work, or read up some more. Kan? Habis tinggi yang tu je lah. Dan cuba usaha lagi. Right? Kita punya cara kita nak interact dengan kita punya students will not be the same if it was assignment or presentation. And of course, in this day and age, that's why you have the word online. Baguslah juga ada COVID ni, barulah semua orang faham bahawa kita dah kena bersedia dah diri kita untuk menghadapi dunia yang online. Alright, online is definitely will be there. Yeah, and some people actually put the word authentic. Yeah, alternative assessment is authentic. The more authentic it is, that's why I said, the more authentic it is, it's fun for the students. I can't see, and that's probably why you can't see too. Maybe if anyone has actually said this word, you just raise your hand. Did anyone put any of the 3 words that describes alternative assessment to them as meaningful? Ada tak? Siapa-siapa? Tak payah tengok kat situ lah, sebab tak nampak. Kalau ada pun mungkin seorang sebab tu dia halui. Ada tak siapa-siapa yang I did? Said meaningful. Yang tu yang dia kena authentic tu. The more meaningful it is, it becomes fun, it becomes worth it for the students to do and for you to be eagerly, excitedly want to mark. Rather than, oh no, nak kena mark pula. You dah macam tak larat dah nak mark dia punya assignment. Let's look at the second question. Did you have just one question or ada 2? Ada satu question ke? Ada lagi satu? Ada satu je? Ish, siapa? Okay, let's do this then. Appear tak the second question dekat your ni? Can you answer that? The same thing. Siapa yang baru masuk tu www.menti.com, just answer je. Yang tu dia suruh rank and rate what alternative assessment that you always use. So I'm glad I actually use this one because this is the only way for you to interact with me if you refuse to speak in the session. You rank. Maksudnya, katalah you selalu guna A, you letakkan dia 90, katalah you letak kat dia 60, yang lain-lain tu you ada balance of total of everything will be 100. So if you have not used it before, let it be 0. Only put it for those types that you have actually used. Faham ya? Belah sini faham tak? In order for you to answer that part, you need to total up all 100. So you have to rank it. If you have used, let's just say type A, and you use other types as well, then you got to decide whether type A will be 60% and the rest will be 30, 20, 10. The types of alternative assessment that you have not used, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Whatever it is, the total of everything will be 100. That's how you rank. Yeah, that's how you rank, yeah. So you akan, maksudnya bila you campur-campur, dia kena jadi 100. Ini dia rank system. Yep. Macam mana? Anyone need help? Let me know, yeah. Okay, tak apa. Dah settle dah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, are you right? So, okay. All right, let's see what you have done. So many people in this room, although not all of you are logged in, would use projects. I guess it's because of your discipline. And coming from the engineering or science base, definitely you would use a lot of project. Experiment, simulation, observation, self-assessment. So not many does writing in blocks or bulletin. How many of you from the language department? From language? Semua tak mau mengaku. Seorang je, I tahu seorang je lah yang. The rest? Semua tak nak mengaku So the language department usually will have lots and lots of writing processes, right? Especially if you're teaching writing. But we always ask our students to write, like the normal essay, they have to write 10 essays. But why can't we sometimes ask them to write in their blogs or bulletin? And sometimes we get the UKK, I don't know what you call it here in Indonesia, the University Komunikasi Korporat tu. Sama, okay. You get the UKK to come and you hantar dia punya writing to the UKK and tell that that's the student from your course writing about something that's interesting, and let UKK blast to the whole entire wide world and get the students to see that dia punya writing is actually being read by so many people other than you. That makes meaning. That makes them understand that when I'm learning about writing, I am learning that when I learn to know how to write well, I can write anywhere. Not just to fulfill the course that I'm taking. Worse still, if the course that I'm taking memang dah ada stigma dah, yang ni semua kursus bahasa Inggeris yang semua orang kena ambil. Apalah salahnya kalau kursus yang semua orang kena ambil, tapi bukan calang-calang orang yang ambil. Yang tu yang kita tanamkan kepada pelajar kita. Baru dia rasa macam, ya Allah, berbaloinya ambil kursus ni. Itu baru language. I'm just giving you an example of language, which sometimes kita terlepas pandang. Sedangkan, ya Allah, ya Tuhanku, macam-macam you boleh buat. Jangan ceritalah yang projek. Tapi sometimes, this is where the ethical guidelines draw a grey area. Sometimes, just because we're teaching the course and they're coming up with the great ideas, we have our name first, they are second. You don't have to put your name, put theirs. Let everybody know it's the second semester student who actually thought about this particular project. Who can actually probably, sell that idea to the whole entire world, wide world. You don't know. Sometimes kita masuk kat dalam blog, dalam YouTube ni, tiba-tiba ada somebody in UNESCO ke apa and realize that your student has got a tremendous idea. Baru second semester. What will you think, what happened if you were the student in second semester, got a call from UNESCO to come and give a talk? What do you think will happen to the student? What? Sorry? boost up their confidence. And that's what Malaysian students lack, not intelligence. They are smart. The only thing that's stopping them is the level of confidence. They always think that other people, especially fairer than them, are smarter. Now, you have to make sure that you give that opportunities to your students. Then only we are talking about negara maju yang ada dekat dalam Malaysian Blueprint tu. Kalau tidak, jangan haraplah nak sampai ke situ. Kita akan sentiasa terikut-ikut di belakang. That is the kind of potential that alternative assessment has. All right? I'm glad that some of you are already using alternative assessment. Good. But I need you to understand the philosophy behind it so that your roh, when you're doing it, emerge. Because once your roh tu keluar, baru students tu pun dia terima. Macam, it's not just any assignment. It is an assignment for my trajectory in learning. It is an assignment to show that I exist in UNIZA for a good reason. Okay? So, if you're talking about what exactly alternative assessment is, basically it's the indirect contrast of conventional assessment. So what can you tell me about conventional assessment? Give me one clue about conventional assessment. Test. Lagi? Quiz. Yalah, quiz yang test. Tapi quiz tu boleh jadi alternative assessment. Tapi kena tahu macam mana lah. Okay, dia test kan? Jadi dia macam exam oriented. Lagi? Sorry? Presentation as in conventional assessment? No. Conventional assessment is never deemed as presentation. It's actually the final exam. It's the standardized assessment. Sebab tu cara kita nak describe conventional assessment is standardized assessment, high stake exam, final exam yang kita tahu tu lah. Okay, where students supposedly are not to copy. Tapi sebenarnya dalam final exam tu, what are the students actually doing? Memorizing before. And when they are in the exam, what they are trying to do? Dia dah memorize dah. Dalam exam tu, they are trying to recall. So that's where the CPU is important. So not all CPUs are good. Sorry? Okay, law maybe different lah. Tapi kalau orang lain, kalau kita kata conventional tu tak ada kerja lain lah. Macam especially kalau mathematics, dia tak nampak dah. Right, but you say that, but go and ask the marketing lecturers. Some of them still ask what are the 4 factors of good marketing. You know, 4 principles. Apa dia kan? It can be the high stake exam because people have in their mind that high stake exam is the only valid way of measuring learning. That's yang tu yang dimaksudkan sebagai conventional assessment. Whereas alternative assessment is actually the active construction of meaning. Dia bukannya nak menghafal je, dia mencari makna. Untuk dia nak solve the problem, dia kena faham dulu. Sebab tu dalam alternative assessment, kalaupun you nak present, dia mesti kena ada problem dulu. Oh, that's brilliant. Kalau case study dalam final exam, maksudnya your final exam tu adalah bibit-bibit untuk dia ada higher order thinking tu. Sebab selalunya dalam final exam, kita fokus kepada yang rendah ni, yang nak menghafal ni. Apply pun apply sikit saja. Betul? 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 Correct. I'm not asking you all to do 100% alternative assessment, but I'm also not asking you to do all quizzes. Coursework kadang-kadang dia ingat quiz. So quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3, final exam. Sebenarnya, the whole entire course is exam oriented. Sedangkan bahasa coursework tu lah yang dia sepatutnya nak kena improve dia punya skill. Betul, nak kena hafal, nak kena tahu dia punya knowledge. Tapi adakah knowledge itu hanya boleh diukur semasa ujian? Tidakkah boleh diukur semasa presentation? Tidakkah boleh diukur semasa dia sedang nak selesaikan case study yang dibuat dalam bentuk projek? Tak boleh ke yang dia terangkan masa dia tengah buat service learning, community engagement, dia nampak real world problem dan dia cuba nak present? Tak boleh ke kita nampak dia punya level of thinking tu? Perlukah kita hanya lihat kalau diploma hanya recall sahaja, tak payah dia nak berfikir secara kreatif? Patut bila masa sampai dekat degree jenuh dia nak fikir secara kreatif. Sedangkan sepatutnya tadika lagi kita kena fikir, suruh dia fikir secara kreatif. We cannot limit the faculty mind, our faculty mind, just because of the age. Wrong. We have to allow the students to think and explore. Cuma tadika cara explore dia berbezalah dengan diplomanya, dengan degree-nya, dengan PhD-nya. So they are guided. Diploma lagi banyaklah guidance dia, but still dia explore. Degree dia adalah dia punya guidance. My tang PhD, no more guidance. You're on your own. You have to decide because you are going to be an expert. Itu beza dia punya tahap dia tu. Tapi tetap dia kena fikir sampai kognitif yang tinggi. Dari tadika sampailah ke peringkat yang tertinggi pun. Yang level 7 ke apa ke. The levels are just there for you to know how much guidance that you need to give. Right? So, in a nutshell, if someone asks what is alternative assessment, other than the paper pencil test, that's considered as alternative assessment. Janji paper pencil test saja, that's conventional. So alternative assessment is considered anything. That's why you have done it before. That's why you say you have done the portfolio, you have done the project, you have done the presentation. That's alternative assessment. It's not something new. However, we need to make sure that it has so much of potential. So don't treat it like just another way of measuring which is devoid of real world context, devoid of real world problems, real world workplace situation. Dekat situlah you lose the element or the potential of alternative assessment. Then alternative assessment almost become like the conventional way of assessment. Yeah? Okay. So what are the examples of, I wouldn't say examples, I would say elements lah. That's why you have performance tadi kan. Kalau kata law, marketing, nampak macam kita kena nak tengok macam mana dia perform. Macam mana dia nak sell dia punya produk. Macam mana dia nak convince people dia punya argument. Right? So that's performance. Kan? So performance based ni sebenarnya macam-macam kita boleh buat. Kita boleh buat simulasi, kita boleh buat project, kita boleh buat exhibition. Tadi tu exhibition tu 2% je yang buat. Sedangkan exhibition tu is also part. If I'm asking them to become a lawyer, asking them to come up with one very simple infographic to talk about akta and act, to make everyone understand about the act, I can make in the form of exhibition, right? Then only I make the lawyers become community friendly. Kalau tidak, lawyers are like in the seventh heaven. Kan, dia berjalan pun macam satu air. I hope there's no lawyers here. Saya nanti ada orang baling kasut kat kan? They speak with a different jargon. They feel that they're the most the cleverest human being on earth just because they can argue with people and can get away with it. You know, so people rasa macam takut nak cakap dengan dia. Bila dia bercakap je, buka mulut je, akta yang ni. You know, the cases yang ni, cases yang tu. Dia buka mulut je, kita dah tahu dah. Oh no, dia dah tak faham. I cannot understand. Tapi kalau you as a first semester, second semester teacher, lecturer teaching law, you want to make them understand the acts. Sedangkan susahnya lah nak faham by the time they reach case nombor 10, case nombor 1 tu dah confused dengan case nombor 3. You know? So if you can ask them to do an infographic of what the acts are, isn't that more interesting than them memorizing the cases? And help them to think that I am not just a lawyer, I need to educate the community around me so that they are aware of their rights. Isn't that what lawyers are supposed to be? Role play, drama, poetry, songs. Ada tak siapa yang ajar medik dekat sini guna songs untuk nak hafal segala bones yang ada dekat dalam badan? Daripada dia nak menghafal satu buku yang tebal tu tentang bones je dah 3 hari 3 malam dia tak bercakap dengan orang. Baru nak hafal tentang, Prof Harmi, if I'm rubbish here, you let me know, okay? You know, dia nak hafal segala parts of the bones tu 3 hari 3 malam tak tidur, tak nak bercakap dengan orang. Sebab dia nampak orang je, dia nampak tulang. You see what I mean? Tapi kalau you suruh dia, katalah first semester, second semester, you dah suruh dia, you know, you want to hafal these bones, be creative, come up with anything. You want to come up with a poetry, you want to come up with a song, go ahead, do whatever that you want. You are stimulating the senses in order for them to recall. When you stimulate panca indera yang banyak, chances of you nak recall tu lebih tinggi. Daripada you hanya, tutup buku hafal. You baru satu je, panca indera dia lah tengok, lihat. Okay? Demonstration, eksperimen, itu biasalah, semua orang akan buat. Tapi apa pun yang you nak buat, pastikan dia authentic. Jangan dia terpisah daripada real world problems. Dekat sini yang kita sangkut. This is where we as lecturers fail. Because we are so enclosed in our cocoon here in the university, we too do not know what is out there. We are devoid of the real world. We don't know the challenges out there. Now that's why they have the program of LISA, latihan industri apa entahlah, something academic. I don't know whether you still have it here in UNIZA. Dia hantar pensyarah-pensyarah yang tak pernah duduk dekat industri ini pergi ke industri untuk you nak faham apa real world dia tu, so that you can prepare your students. I'm telling you based on my experience observing. I was doing STEM research, so I had to observe lecturers to see how do they actually, you know, teach STEM-related subjects. Based on my observation of many lecturers in many universities, I can see a pattern. Those who have been in the industry teach beyond the curriculum. Those who have not teach the book, by the book. They successfully made me sleep in their class. But the ones who come from industry, I was awake and I was really learning from them. They were talking about polymer, nothing to do with me. I have never learned about polymer except for sikit je lah chemistry masa tingkatan 4, 5. Tu je. Tu pun tak faham masa tu. You know? But in the class, it was so interesting because he can relate what's happening in the real world in the classroom. He's not teaching just the curriculum, it's beyond the curriculum. Kalau dia marah students dia pun, students dia still redha. Sebab dia pun dah tahu dah, saya akan belajar daripada pensyarah ni bukan hanya konten, tetapi saya akan belajar lebih daripada itu. Yang saya tahu yang pelajar dia boleh kena marah sebab saya duduk dekat belakang, saya terkejut macam mana dia ni mengajar, garangnya pensyarah-pensyarah ni. Just because dia nak buka dia punya machine tu, dia panggil one student ni, you come, switch on the machine. Dia takut kot dekat pensyarah dia, terlupa dia punya procedure nak buka machine tu, dia terus buka je, pensyarah dia punya marah sampai I macam sebab I from School of Education, kami kalau nak marah pun berhemah. You know? So dia macam tiba-tiba dia marah macam I rasa macam dekat kilang masa tu. You know, how many times did I tell you? Berepek dia marah. Budak tu, dia dah kurus. I rasa macam lagi kecil lagi budak tu. You know, and I'm not supposed to interview students, but because of that incident, I had to interview her. I just wanted to ask her, why have you not pack your things and go home? Because it's like stressful kot duduk dalam kelas dia ni. But the student said, that's what I wanted to do on the first day. But this lecturer told me, why do you want to go home? She said, I cannot, I'm very slow. I'm doing engineering, but I'm very slow. I always forget a lot of the facts kan. So the lecturer tanya dekat dia, do you want to become an engineer? So dia kata, yes. Do you want to become an engineer? Yes, I will make you, but you make sure you learn. Nampak tak? Dia macam, I akan tolong you, tapi you kena make sure that you betul-betul backup lah. Sebab tu yang dia reda kena marah tu. Sebab dia dah tahu dah, dia ni memang tak ingat. Yang kawan-kawan dia masa kena marah tu macam, berapa kali dah cakap. Ya, macam lagi sikit nak tampar dia lah sebab pasal dia semua orang kena marah. And dalam kelas tu pukul 4 PM, okay? Yang selalunya masa untuk kita nak tidur lah. Pukul 4 PM, I tak boleh tidur, I tak dan nak duduk, mereka pun tak dan nak duduk. There's a table, everybody is standing thinking about the parameters because every time when he comes into the group, what's your parameter? What's your parameter? You, what did you do? What did you do? Kelas dia macam, you know, that was what I felt being in his class. You know, that was the vibes. So when I terpaksa interview dia pula, interview the teacher, pasal lecturer, pasal apa pula you buat macam tu kan? Dia kata, because I am not preparing her for the course. I am preparing her for the real world. In the real world, if she switch on the machine, not according to the procedure, that machine costs millions. It will malfunction and the whole entire operation system will just stop. That in itself will cost other million. The next thing you know, morning she's working, evening she's out of the kilang. So I kata, okay, continue and do whatever that you want to do. Because your student is feeling that. Dia keluar-keluar daripada kelas dia, I ingat keluar-keluar macam semua orang macam, keluar-keluar daripada kelas dia, oh it was interesting, isn't it? The parameter tadi macam, interesting. I was like, hampir pingsan dekat belakang tu. But the way in which they got it, maksudnya dia sampaikan roh dia kepada pelajar dia. Why dia buat macam tu, dia sampaikan, pelajar dia tahu. Bukan dia nak marah sebab PMS, no. Only the women will understand this, and Prof Harmi, I guess. Right, so that's why you need to make sure that it's as close as the real world context. I'm giving that as an example. But if you are teaching humanities, Masya Allah, apa sahaja yang you tak boleh nak masukkan, you know. If you're teaching anything that's related to human, lagilah. Buka newspaper je dah dapat dah dia punya real world context. Engineering pun sama sebenarnya. Alright? And connect it to the community and industry. That's why we have sulam lah. It's all interconnected, you know. That's why we have all this service learning. It's actually to make sure that when the students learn something in your course, it's actually related to the community. They're not learning for themselves. They are preparing as a contributor of the community one day. And you're starting early, while they are on campus, while they have you as the mentor. Then we have the portfolio. Yang ni yang paling famous sekali lah dalam banyak-banyak alternative assessment ni. Portfolio is the one that they always use. Tapi kalau portfolio you rasa macam letak je apa-apa dan you pun antara baca dengan tidak, it's not gonna fit that purpose. Right? So it's got to be meaningful. Apa yang you nak letak kat dalam portfolio tu? Mesti kena ada evidence of learning taking place. So it is a collection of student sample work, but more than that, you need to make sure that there's students' reflection. And when you are reading students' reflection, I do pray to Allah that you too are doing reflection. Because when they are telling you about how they learn, they are also telling you how well you taught. In not so many ways. And so now not only we have portfolio, we also have e-portfolio. Kan, dia boleh hantar dekat dalam, yang tu pun boleh buat blog juga. Dia boleh buat dia punya own blog kalau kita nak pakaikan e-portfolio. Right, and yang tu lah saya kata tu, kalau kita nak suruh mereka buat report, daripada asyik-asyik report, tukarlah sekali-sekala. Suruh mereka tulis bulletin ke, akhirnya dia jadi bulletin untuk semua orang nak baca ke, and it's not just orang yang dekat dalam campus, dalam kursus tu yang baca, the whole entire campus, the whole entire community gets to learn from them, kan? Journal, learning blogs, report proposal tu biasa je lah. And the kind of questions that you ask in the classroom and the kind of questions that you pose to your students as assignment should be open-ended. This is the best part. So open-ended that sometimes, if you can, challenge yourself, give questions that you yourself don't know what's the answer. Oh, yang itu baru betul-betul trajectory lah. Kadang-kadang macam kita lontarkan soalan yang bagi dia fikir, kita pun sama-sama fikir. Dan hari yang salah seorang dapat jawapan dia, hari itulah kita pergi makan KFC bersama-sama. Kerana kita dapat bau rasa ilmu tu sebenarnya. When both of you, kadang-kadang kita rasa seronok je, syok sendiri. Sebab kita dah tanya soalan yang kita dah tahu jawapan. So kita selalunya 5 saat je boleh bertahan. Kalau dia lambat je nak respon macam yang ni kan, tanya soalan, dia lambat je nak respon, dia dah mula nak keluar lah jawapannya. Dia yang tanya, dia yang jawab. Tapi kalau dia tanya soalan yang dia pun tak tahu apa jawapan dia, maka dua-dua akan ada masa yang lama untuk berfikir. Itulah baru ilmuwan. Itulah baru kita masuk universiti. Sama-sama kita berfikir. Tak payah tunggu buat PhD pun. Undergrad pun boleh buat. And the questions are not just one way, one answer sahaja. Kalau yang tu, I boleh terima lah, walaupun saya tak boleh terima, tapi saya terpaksa terima lah. Dekat sekolah rendah memang dia macam tu, dia ada answer key. Students tak follow the answer key, they will not get the marks. You jawablah macam mana pun sampai 3 muka surat, kalau tak follow the answer key of the teacher, you'll get 0. But in the university, I hope it's not like that. You have to look at the questions. If you don't understand, if you don't know, tell yourself that it's me that do not know. I need to go and find out whether this is true or not. So you kena ada benefit of the doubt. Tak boleh nak gather the information, go and find out, seek help from your colleagues. Cannot find your colleagues in the university, find the whole entire colleagues in the whole entire university in Malaysia. Jangan senang-senang kita nak kata apa yang dia buat itu adalah salah. Sebab tak sama dengan answer key itu. Okay? Sebab itulah soalan-soalan yang kita perlu tanya adalah soalan-soalan yang open-ended. And finally, kalau boleh, walaupun saya rasa susah yang ni, sebab kita dah biasa dengan kuasa. We are so used to power, we want to take control. We want to be the only one speaking. We want to be the only one calling who we allow to speak. And worse still, we only want to give feedback. We're the only one who is capable of giving feedback. So, hadap with our power. Sekali-sekala, cuba-cuba release that power. Give it to your students so that they can also learn to give feedback to their friends. That's what we call peer assessment. And empower your students that they themselves can actually see that they have actually made the mistake and learn from it. Sebab selagi kita tak ajar, if you don't teach them how to do self-assessment, how can they learn how to do muhasabah diri? No wonder dia tak boleh nak buat muhasabah diri. Kita cakap je muhasabah diri. Ustaz-ustaz tak penat nak cakap perkataan muhasabah diri. But nobody is like, it's a word, but nobody knows what to do with it. But if you teach, especially now the new MQF 2.0, the learning cluster personal skill tu, yang itu penuh dengan muhasabah diri. Itu pastikan you punya assignment tu mesti kena ada self reflection, because it's about personal skills, how they learn, how they develop, how they understand their world. So basically, if you can educate your learners to become to do peer assessment and self-assessment, you are actually educating them to become independent. And when you are teaching them to become or educating them to become independent, they can survive in this VUCA world. Because COVID ke, online ke, they know what to do when they are independent. But when they are dependent, That's why they don't want to study until they see your face. So by hook or by crook, you need to make them become independent. That's what we call self-regulated learning or self-directed learning. Kita kena ajar dekat mereka cara-cara untuk mereka nak jadi independent. And they, not only that, they become responsible, they become trustworthy. What do I mean by trustworthy? I know in your head, susah lah nak buat peer assessment, self-assessment. They will always rate themselves high. You know, peer assessment, you bagi kat I 5, okay? Nanti I bagi kat you 5. You know, the kau team awal-awal. Kan? Don't stop at there. When they give 5, dia pun bagi 5, you ask them, on what ground do you give their 5? Where's the evidence? Let me share with you about the service learning that we did. We ask students to do self-assessment, or they rate themselves high. Out of 10, social skills, 9. Tinggal sikit je lagi nak 10. So they rated 9. Until we ask them to start talking to, yang ni pula dekat, I did this with Islamic Business School. So Islamic Business School macam ni lah lebih kurang. The men will be on one side and the women will be on one side. But this time we ask them to start swapping. Maksudnya dia macam 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, all 1 in one group, all 2 in one group, you know. So they have a combination of female and male. Nak tanya dekat dalam tu pun ambil setengah jam. Baru nak tanya, you know, what's your name, and adalah dia punya aktiviti kan. Nak social skills, sebelum nak pergi keluar, sebelum you nak bercakap dengan orang kat community tu, kena bercakap lah dengan kawan-kawan you yang you tak kenal lagi ni. Dengan kawan-kawan yang dalam kelas tu pun seksa nak bercakap. After that activity, we ask them to rate again. Rate yourself again. Baru sedar diri. Daripada 9 tadi, 2. So bila dah 2, maksudnya dia dah ready untuk belajar. So cara-cara nak bertanya. Kena ajar. Itu maksudnya walaupun kita ada learning cluster, jangan fokus kepada topik, jangan fokus kepada content and knowledge sahaja. Jangan lupa yang you ada skill yang you kena ajar dia. Some of our students tak reti nak bercakap dengan orang. They don't know. They go ballistic if they start asking strangers. Nah, kita nak buat service learning, nak bawa mereka ke community tu, it's costly. You cannot bring them all the time. So before we bring them outside, we need to make sure that they have the skills so that it's not wasted. You know, you go, you do what you have to do and you come back. Bila dia rate 2/10, that's where we start giving them lots and lots and lots of activities that harness their confidence to speak in front of people, strangers. Lepas tu baru keluar. Sebab bila keluar nak jumpa pakcik-pakcik, makcik-pakcik, ada dia kata, saya nak jumpa makcik saja. Tak boleh. Sebab dia at random, right? So dia nak kena jumpa ada pakcik dan makcik, baru dia boleh bercakap. Baru dia punya reflection pada awalnya. Sedap dia punya penceritaan pembelajaran, sebab dia nampak pada awalnya dia rasa macam dia boleh tipu je dekat pensyarah. Sebab selama ni dia hidup macam tu. Dan ada pensyarah yang terima. Sebab pensyarah tu tak tanya kat dia atas dasar apa yang you bagi dekat kawan you tu tinggi, atas dasar apa yang you bagi pada diri you tu tinggi. Kita tak tanya, kita terima je seadanya. Lepas tu kita komplain pelajar kita bagi tinggi pada diri mereka. Right? So dia kata pada asalnya memang dia rate tinggi sebab dia rasa macam tak apa, pensyarah tak kisah pun. Until pensyarah tanya atas dasar apa, and then until kena buat the second activity where I had to sit with groups yang I tak kenal. Oh, dia kata betapa susahnya. Dia ceritalah kenapa dia susah. Why? And finally dia dapat buat. The next time bila dia rate 2/10, dia kena cerita pula kenapa dia rate 2/10. Dia rasa dia lemah dalam bahagian yang ni. Sebab dalam rubrik tu dia dah tunjuk kan apa yang dia lemah. So dia sendiri dah tahu dah bahagian mana yang dia nak kena improve. That's the beauty of rubrik pula. It tells you your strength, it tells you your weaknesses. So that's how you make your students become independent of learning. Not bergantung kepada you. Dia sendiri dah tahu dah apa yang dia perlu buat. And the best part of it, after doing that basically dia kena buat halal toiban ni. Dia kena interview all these proprietors dalam kafe dekat universiti ni to see whether mereka ni follow tak halalan thayyiban tu sampai boleh dapat the halal JAKIM punya certification. So it's actually we worked with JAKIM as well. So when after dah habis dah course tu, walaupun kursus tu dah habis, pelajar tu belum lagi sepatutnya bergraduate, dia baru semester 4, dia kata saya dah tak sabar-sabar dah nak keluar untuk nak bantu masyarakat, sebab saya rasa masyarakat yang makan pun tak tahu, masyarakat yang meniaga pun tak tahu. Sumber yang diambil tu adakah betul-betul halal atau tidak. Yang orang yang makan kat situ janji Muslim. Kedai Aminah jalan, boleh makan. Tapi Aminah beli dekat mana? It's alright. Tu Aminah punya masalah. So sekarang ni dia baru faham bahawa selagi kita tak bagi dia orang ni semua faham masalah dengan kita punya masyarakat. Can you see that? Baru semester 4. Semester 8 bila kita tanya dekat dia, where do you want to go for your practicum, dia dah tahu dah dekat mana dia nak buat, dan dia dah buat pun, dah dapat certification from JAKIM pun, JAKIM dah kata dah boleh come for the interview. Belum bergraduate. Itu maksud dia, making meaning. Asalnya daripada kursus. Making meaning sampai dia boleh nampak ke mana hala tuju dia. Bila kita tanya masa mula-mula, you ambil kursus ni pasal apa? Saya pun tak tahu, saya ambil je. Yang ni yang nombor 12. Nombor 1 sampai 11 tu universiti lain. Nombor 12 UUM, contoh. I'm just exaggerating. Tak adalah sampai nombor 12. Tapi maksudnya, it's not the first choice. Dia tak minta pun program tu. Tapi akhirnya dia punya semangat nak contribute back to the community tu is so high because dia nampak dah sekarang ni ilmu yang dia belajar tu dengan connection dia kepada community. So that's why when you did your 3 words tadi, I can see the word formative. Cumanya I terlupa nak cakap tadi. Some of you actually use the word formative. So you are right, alternative assessment is typically formative. That's why you say give feedback. Tadi kan? You said it's a point where you do presentation, you want to give feedback to your students. It's initially formative, where they are given an opportunity for them to show what they have learned, and assessment is seen as a form of learning, and whether intended learning, for intended learning to take place. That means receiving as well as providing feedback to their peers and also the instructors. So initially it is formative, but at the end when you give them the final marks, then it becomes summative lah. Kan? Masa awal-awal tu memang dia akan jadi formative, just like we say when you do the project and all that. So that's why when you use alternative assessment, chances are, or high probable, for you to use rubric. So I'm sure you know that when you're doing the rubric, well, let me ask you. When you're doing how many of you have used rubric before? Dah pernah guna? Okay. So when you were designing your rubric, what was the first thing that you have to think of? Benda yang mula-mula yang you nak kena, sebelum you nak buat rubrik tu, apa dia yang very important that you need to make sure you understand? Sorry? You gotta shout. Loudly. Brilliant. The course learning outcome. Right? You have to understand the course learning outcome dulu, baru you boleh come up with the rubric, because the course learning outcome will become the criteria. So if your course learning outcome says apply, then your first criteria will be ability for students to apply. Kalaulah that course learning outcome connected to communication, then ability for your students to communicate well. Tapi bila apply tu pula, dia akan pecah-pecah lagi lah. Apply tu maksudnya apa? Dia define, dia relate, dia apa-apa. Dia akan ada pecah-pecahan dia tu. Sama juga dengan communicate. Communicate tu maksudnya apa? Dia boleh cakap with confidence, eye contact, apa dia, using good language, verbally or in written form. So yang tu lah dia punya pecahan-pecahan dia. So that's why you need to understand the course learning outcome, not just the cognitive, the whole entire bandwagon. Maksudnya the cognitive, the affective, the psychomotor, and the soft skills, which some universities they call PO, some places they call learning clusters. Basically, it's just soft skills. Kan, yang communication, personal skill lah apa-apa. So you need to know that CLO tu connect kepada apa. So jangan lupa yang soft skill tu. Kalau tidak sampai ke bila pun, we will never be able to fulfill thrust 1 of the MEBHE. You need to develop the skills, not just the knowledge, right? So that's why it's very high probable that you will be using rubric. So the criteria will be on the left, the columns, the criteria will be the rows, the columns will be the standard. Kan, from beginning to exemplary, ataupun from weak to very good or excellent. Now, apart from rubric, there's also checklist, especially if you're doing lab work. Tak payahlah nak pakai rubric sebab dia ikut prosedur. So maybe you use checklist rather than rubric. Buat ke tak buat? Buat ke tak buat? Buat ke tak buat? Right? So that will be checklist. Well, if you are really up to it, you can also have written anecdotal. Yang ni selalunya sesuai untuk preschool lah. Sebab dia susah nak dapatkan evidence in writing. So cikgu tu yang akan tulis apa yang pelajar tu boleh buat. So dia akan buat written anecdotal record. So if you can actually do that, that will be terribly brilliant. Mental anecdotal notes, yang ini kalau CPU you bagus. Sebab mental anecdotal notes, you must be able to remember everything that happened. Chances are, you might not. So that's why, or maybe we can use the video ke apa ke, but point is, mental anecdotal notes, you can if you are very, how shall I say, familiar, yeah, the way in which you do that. If it's written anecdotal records, you can, while they are doing their discussion, let's just say if your course is actually related to the interpersonal skills, so you want to see how they interact during the discussion, that's where you do the written anecdotal notes. Because usually, if it's related to interpersonal skills, chances are your delivery as well as the assessment would be done in groups. Sebab kalau tidak, macam mana nak tengok interpersonal skills? Dia takkan nak pakai apa, psychic power pula kan? So they will have to sit in groups and discuss. So while they are discussing, don't drink coffee. While they are discussing, that's when you do the written anecdotal notes. So you want to see group A, how do they, because you know already who is in the group A. Group B macam mana, group C macam mana, group D macam mana, group E macam mana. So basically the learning process is pretty much easy. It's very straightforward. You've got formative, and finally summative. Maksudnya, sebelum nak sampai ke summative tu, you must have rounds of formative. Especially when we are talking about outcomes-based education. Now, outcomes-based education means at the end of your course, you dah akad. You already said, at the end of the course, students will be able to 1, 2, 3. Selalunya in your courses, how many CLOs do you have? 3. Nasib baik 3. Ada setengah tu sampai 5. You know, kalau 3 tu just nice already. You know already, whatever it is, I've got to make sure the students achieve this. But are the students the same? Year in, year out, are they the same? 2001 students and 2011 students, are they the same? No. If you have taught for many years, you will know what I mean when I say are they the same. Yang dekat dalam kelas tu, dalam the same cohort tu pun berbeza, jangan ceritalah yang cohort yang sebelum ni dengan cohort yang selepas ni. Dia akan ada berbeza. But if you teach the same, is that fair? This is the thing that we need to make sure that we understand before we actually do alternative assessment. Because our students are not the same. The challenges that they face are not the same. But all of them, regardless of their background, they still need to make sure that they are able to fulfill the learning outcome that you have stated. Upon entering my course, you will be able to achieve this. How well you achieve, that's a different story together. But you will achieve. Faham tak? Jadi cara kita nak pastikan semua pelajar kita dapat atau tidak tu, tak bolehlah sekali je tiba-tiba nak buat quiz. We're gonna do a pop quiz. Hari ni ajar, pop quiz. Pop quiz tu lah 10% untuk dia punya 100%. Sedangkan selama ni yang you ajar, faham masuk gear 1 pun belum lagi. Dia baru macam, kenapalah I kena ambil kursus ni. 3 minggu dia dalam dilema kenapa dia kena ambil kursus ni. Habis minggu ketiga tu, pop, ada satu pop quiz. Rasa-rasanya dia akan dapat keputusan yang elok tak? Tak. Tapi 10% tu kira tak? Kira. Adil tak? Tak. Because we did not give them the opportunity for them to receive feedback about what they understand before they are given the quiz that will be treated as summative, although done in the first month or the second month. Jangan kita ingat macam zaman dulu betul, summative kita hanya final exam. I think my dad masa masuk, kalau dia masuk dalam universiti ke apa kan, it will be like, you belajar the whole entire months that you have in the university. At the end, you will have one exam. You fail, out you go. You pass, please continue. Yang itu summative betul-betul. Sebab sekali je dia bagi. Kita ni coursework lah konon. Coursework and final exam. Tapi kita treat kita punya coursework pun macam final exam. Mujur ada yang ambil projek. Kalau projek tu chances are you akan suruh mereka present lah sebelum nak hantar punya projek. Sebab takut lagi nanti tersasar pula, nanti pening kepala you nak baca. Sebab tu kita biar buat presentation tu kita nak bagi feedback. Okey lah tu, itulah yang dimaksudkan sebagai formatifnya. Tapi kalau quiz, ada you nak bagi feedback sebelum you nak bagi quiz, jarang lah, kata Piramli, jarang. Selalunya dia terus nak bagi quiz je 10%. Worse still, dia kata, it's okay. I'll give you quiz, I'll give you 10 quiz, but I'm going to take 3 out of the best quizzes. Sama je. Sebab kerja you ialah set soalan, mark. Set soalan, mark. Set soalan, mark. Masa bila you nak bagi feedback? Tak dan. Konon-konon dengan handaian, feedback dia lah tu, dia dah dapat tahu dah, dia dapat 3/10. Do you know that dia masa dia ambil dapat 3/10, dia pun tak tahu pasal apa dia dapat 3 tu. Lepas tu the next time dia ambil, dia macam fluctuate like bursa saham, you know. The next time dia ambil, maybe 7/10. If you ask that student, how come you got 7/10 dulu 3/10? I really don't know. Luck is on my side. You know what I mean? So kita tak nak luck to be on their side. Luck is not a good reason for you to study. You must study because you know. You must do the exam and tell the whole world what you know because you have actually studied. So the quizzes, if it's done in a formative way before the pop quiz that you have that will be carried as a summative, is the right way forward, and barulah boleh dikenali sebagai, boleh diterima walaupun dia dalam bentuk recall sebagai alternative assessment. Di situlah yang penggunaan web 2.0 tu penting. Anybody has used quizzes online before the COVID-19? Okay, what apps did you use if you nodded? Kahoot. Lagi? Flip. Clip. Okay. Lagi? Banyak lagi. Quizlet, quizzes. All these are all sorts of web 2.0 tools that you can actually use in the classroom to help your students gain feedback about what they do, how they know, what they need to do. Maksudnya, selepas dia dapat 3/10, kalau you buat melalui assessment ni, usually what you will do, what the system will tell you is, especially if you design it in such a manner, topic 1, 2, 3, everybody did badly. Topic 5, 6, 7, fine. So what you need to do is just to go over 1, 2, 3 because they're still not sure. So you have an indicator from your students which topic that they need remedial. Itu baru betul-betul feedback. Baru dia faham yang 3/10 tu kena apa dia. So, if formative as learning, if you can allow them to do a self-reflection, that will be as learning, self-reflection ni. Dia reflect diri dia apa yang dia belajar. For learning will be your feedback, the peer feedback, kan? Quizzes feedback, boleh lah kalau you nak buat quiz sangat. And finally, the summative is off learning. So betul lah. The first thing that you need to know is the notion of constructive alignment. You start and you must hafal your course learning outcome. The minute you have your course syllabus, you tak payah nak komplain dah kenapalah kursus ni diberikan kepada saya. Terimalah seadanya, cuma checklah sekali-sekala what is the name of the course and the code, just in case, because some universities, they do the lean management method where they combine a few faculties. You might get other faculties courses because they share the same name. Kan? FAUZIAH Abdul Rahim, FAUZIAH Abdul Rahman. Yang tu fakulti bahasa, ni fakulti pendidikan, digabungkan. So yang ni dapat bahasa, yang tu dapat pendidikan. Padahal terbalik, you know. So sometimes you need to look at the course name so that you know, okay, I can handle that. The next thing that you need to look is the CLO, the course learning outcome or the course outcome. You have to understand sebenarnya kursus ni nak apa daripada saya. Supaya saya boleh design apa untuk pelajar saya. Sebab selagi saya tak faham, macam mana saya nak design delivery and assessment for my students? So it's not the topics that you need to look. That's what you do, right? The first thing that you do, you look at the topics. Wrong. The first thing that you do, you need to look at the course learning outcome. Because the course learning outcome will then define which topic is related to the course learning outcome. So every time you reach that topic, activate that course learning outcome. Reach that topic, activate those learning outcome. Contoh, kalau you tengok dalam you punya syllabus sekarang ni, atau balik lagi, CLO yang pertama relate to topik 1, 2. CLO yang kedua relate kepada topik 3 dan 4. CLO pertama ialah identify. So topik 1 dengan 2, kerja pelajar you ialah dalam kelas, tak ada kerja lain dah. Identify saja. So identify apa? Barulah identify tengok topik. Kalau ada teori, identify semua teori-teori yang berkaitan dengan topik itu. Topik ketiga dengan 4, CLO2. CLO2 ialah discuss, contoh, or apply. Dia tak ada kerja lain dah, apply. Tapi selama ni apa yang terjadi? Tak kira lah topik 1 ke, 14 ke, yang dok buat dia punya activation of verbs is the pensyarah. Dialah yang identify, dialah yang apply, dialah juga yang set soalan, dia jugalah yang bagi soalan, akhirnya dia mark soalan, lepas tu dia komplain pelajar dia tak faham. Sebab 3 jam tiap-tiap minggu yang dia bagi kepada pelajar dia untuk ajar, the 3 hours is meant for her. Wrong. If you are novice, 2 hours for you, 1 hour for your student. So if the class is designed as 1.5, 1.5, is that how it's designed here? 1 and 2. Okay. 1 and 2, half hour you, half hour them. 2, 1 hour you, 1 hour them. Contoh. Tapi kalau you're novice, tak apalah. Half an hour them, the rest are yours. But as you become familiar with, that's what we call student-centered learning. They are activating the verbs. Once they become familiar, release your power. Let them have a go. What is important is what in there, what is in their head. When they tell you what's in their head, you know how to guide them. When they are quiet like this, you really don't know, because still water runs deep. If it runs very well, fine, but it can also go elsewhere. Do you see what I mean? I'm not saying that you should be busy lah. I'm saying that if this was your class, you know, if it was a lecture based, habislah. Dia akan buat-buat macam dia faham. Sebab budak darjah 1 pun boleh buat-buat macam dia faham. That was what my research was about. You know, the cikgu bagi 50 soalan kepada pelajar untuk nak buat darjah 1 ni. 50 soalan. 1 campur 2, 2 campur 2, 1 campur 3, 3 campur 2. 50 soalan untuk student nak tulis kan. Student yang dekat belakang tu, nombor 1, nombor 2 dia boleh kenal. Nombor 3 onwards dia tak kenal lah. Cikgu tu bagi 3 campur 2. Campur tu apa pun dia tak kenal. What is plus pun dia tak tahu. So apa dia buat? Paper ni dia letak dekat bawah meja, cakap pasal Doraemon. How do I know? I was behind dia. I was right at the back. I was the part of the furniture in the classroom. Sebab bila ditanya, teacher nak pergi toilet, I buat tak tahu je. So dia kata macam, hopeless lah, this woman, you know, is not a teacher. So dia dah tahu dah yang ni bukan teacher. Okay, so dia kena tanya kat cikgu dia. So dia, letak je dekat bawah, dia cakap pasal Doraemon. Budak darjah 1, elok cikgu dia pusing jalan ke arah dia, dia keluarkan paper, dia buat macam ni matematik punya kelas. So naturally, if you are the teacher, what do you think? Everything's fine because they're showing the right behavior, right? The behavior of counting, it is about counting. So cikgu tu rasa macam everything is okay. Tapi sebenarnya everything is so not okay. So kalau budak darjah 1 pun boleh buat kerja-kerja macam tu, jangan ceritalah 19 tahun dan ke atas. They know when to nod at the right time. When actual fact they are not there with you. They are already thinking of the nasi dagang nearest to them. Especially if it's 10 o'clock class, which should be active class, because 10 o'clock baru bangun tidur, terus pergi kelas you, makan pun tak lagi. So you duduk merepek dekat depan tu, dia tak sabar-sabar nak keluar, nak pergi makan, and that will be dia punya branch for the next class. Itu hakikat. Sebab tu siapa yang tahu dah pelajar dia baru nak bangun pukul 10, dalam kelas dia kena ada curry puff. Siapa boleh jawab? Curry puff. You know, so that dia rasa macam seronok lah. So you've got the learning outcomes, and you also will have the learning activities during delivery. Yang maksud saya tu, 30 minit mesti kena bagi kepada pelajar. Maksudnya daripada week 1 lagi, kelas pertama lagi, you kena fikir dah aktiviti apa yang akan berkait dengan CLO yang mana untuk topik apa. Your student is so not going to be relaxing in your classroom. They are going to do something. The key now is, what should they do? Yang tu, betul. Yang tu requires you to go and sit bawah pokok ketapang kat mana-mana, you know, relax, overlooking now you all have the beautiful ocean. Start thinking in a creative mode. What kind of activities will I be able to give my students to activate the verbs related to the topic? How? Sebab I need to know what they are thinking. I need to know what they are feeling. I need to know whether they understand what they need to do after they got their knowledge. Yang itulah 3 tu. The head, the heart, the hand. We're not educating the head. We have to educate the heart. We're not just educating the head and the heart. We need to make sure that we educate the hand. Sebab tu dalam kita punya CLO ada 3 komponen tu. The cognitive, the affective, the psychomotor. Dia bukan ada saja je nak bagi pecah kepala untuk you. Dia ada sebab tu. Sebab when we are educating, we cannot just educate intellectually. It's got to go all out. The motion must be there. What you do with the knowledge must also be there. Okay? And finally is the assessment lah. Lepas you dah buat dia punya delivery, that will be the assessment. So why is this important? As I mentioned just now, I think from in the morning, alternative assessment ni kalau kita tengok daripada 1996, 1992, 1993, 2004, that's almost like more than a decade ago, betul tak? Then why are we talking about alternative assessment in this 21st century? Why? Siapa? Why is it still relevant? It's so relevant that Erasmus has one special project to come up with a policy on assessment practices for 21st century. Alternative assessment is the thing. Nampak tak? Performance-based tu. That's the performance-based. And they talk about learning 21st century, in the learning 21st century, dia punya argument ialah, are we assessing 21st century skills based on 20th century standards? Yang tu dia punya persoalan dia. Kerana apa? Kerana kita masih mencari. We are still searching for the right way to measure learning in the context of now. In the 21st century yang penuh dengan challenges ni. how can we make sure that the assessment that we do is truly preparing our students for the real world. Sebab kan orang selalu duk kata kat kita kan, graduate daripada Uniza 3.8, tapi bila tanya dalam interview, krik. So dia pun heran, 3.8 ni main pada mana? Atas dah siapa? Tapi bukan Uniza aja, satu dunia macam tu. Sebab itulah satu dunia tengah buat research on this. So are we actually assessing, still cakap pasal alternative assessment tapi pakai standard 20th century, tak lihat kepada apa yang sedang berlaku pada 21st century. Yang itulah yang kita kena kaitkan dengan real world tadi. Ya. Inilah, the world is so VUCA that mana siapa nak tahu kata in December, in November it hit the, duk ingat macam kena dekat China, oh, that's too far from us, can never get lah, until happen in March. It came knocking on our door, so much so that we even can't go out. Right? So that's what I mean by VUCA world. Yang ini baru yang kita nampak. Yang mereka ni yang nak keluar ni sama ada kerja, tak ada kerja, nak kerja apa, semua tu belum lagi kita tengok. Sebab tu kita kena sediakan pelajar-pelajar kita supaya dia buatlah apa pun, belajarlah apa pun, still dia boleh contribute to the community. So that's why it's important for us to understand our learners. Who are they? If you don't understand your learners, if you told me already that cohort 1 and cohort 2 and cohort 3 are different, in fact, in the same cohort it is different, if you still do not want to understand your learners, how can you design your delivery and your assessment for your students? Because you need to achieve a standard. Outcomes-based education means that you have indicated the standard. Where did you indicate the standard? In your CLO. So regardless of where your students come from or what level they are, you need to actually make sure that you address who they are, and at the same time you are able to give them that opportunity to learn in the classroom. Because you and I know that what we have right now, well, maybe some Y, but many Z, right? Coming, our first semesters are actually the Z generation. But coming your way is the Alpha. Alpha ni dalam kandungan lagi dah slide dah. You know, they come out, it's like no gadgets, no life. That's the Alpha world. You in the X generation, like me, will never understand. Because we always will like to say, kita dulu, habis, dulu dia tu, pisah dia tu 1 abad. Alright, so you cannot use that kita dulu. It will never work. Right, so you just need to understand your learners and make sure you adapt to them. And they learn how to survive in their world because their world and your world dulu tak sama. Contoh yang paling senang sekali anak kata, zaman dulu SPM 2As can still go overseas. Zaman dulu-dulu. Now 10A+, not necessarily you can go. That is one very simple example of how dulu and sekarang berbeza. So never use that. You use that, you're going to get one long debate with the generation Z and Alpha. So, sorry for the color. I tak tahu macam nak ubah the red ni, dia by default. Understanding our world requires delivery and assessment for the future. Sebab itulah yang kita nak sekarang ni fikir tentang alternative assessment yang dah ada lama tu. We need to start thinking about how to prepare for the future. What I mean by preparing for the future, sebab tu I letak 7 Cs. 7 Cs tu konon-konon macam laut lah. Laut ni kita panggil 7 Cs kan. 7 Cs tu dia adalah CC dia tu. But we need to have a dynamic curriculum. What happened to us when we had that COVID thingy? We were stuck. I think almost all the universities had problems to continue because our curriculum was as such that it was meant for face-to-face. It was not designed for online. So we were in a halt, basically, at one point of time. We didn't know what to do. Should we continue? We were praying very hard for everything to, to come back as normal, and they come back and then we can do the face-to-face like normal. But we now know the normal has gone. It's now the new normal, right? So tapi the new normal cannot be like how we addressed last time. There were many loopholes lah. Loopholes there, if I can share with you, will be who was the one who administered the questions to the students? Siapa yang bagi soalan kepada pelajar? Lecturer, bukan HEA kan? Bukan. Did HEA collect the staff students' scripts? What happened to the student scripts? Send back to you, right? So individual lecturers become hal ehwal akademik in one semester. If the new norm is going to be continued like that, it's going to be a disaster because there is no governance. No one monitors who gives, no one monitors who receives, because it's the same person who set, the same person yang bagi, the same person yang terima, the same person yang nak mark. Kalau the same person says, oh, nobody's actually checking, all they need to do is just pretend they send, pretend they terima, but they give marks. Boleh kan? Boleh terjadi. Sebab itulah, the new norm can only happen, the new norm with all the obstacles can only happen during that A192. Betul kan? A192 kan? Sama kan? The second semester of 2019. Betul tak? A192, the new norm yang kelang kabut macam tu, yang all the pensyarah has got to just do. I memang tabik hormat to all the pensyarah lah, because they actually tried their level best to make sure that apapun, dengan cara apa sekalipun, our students, some of them don't even have computers. And worse still, not only our students, our pensyarah also didn't stay where there's internet connection. That's why they like coming to the university to do work. But they cannot come to the university to do work. They had to stay in their own house, kan? During the MCO. Sampai some of them actually bought online, thumb drives, start downloading all the information and start sending to the students' homes. Sampai ke tahap tu, kegigihan seorang pendidik untuk nak pastikan pelajar dia selesai semester A192. So if your students can still continue with online, hebatlah orang Terengganu. Koknya sebab masa primary school pun dah dapat laptop, dapat tablet dekat Terengganu kan, compared to other states. So yeah, so we need to make sure that from now on we learn our past, that we need to now start thinking about that, a more dynamic curriculum. And we need now to ensure that our delivery, our design of our lessons must be constructivist in nature. Knowledge construction is the students that actually construct the knowledge. And if possible, ask questions that you yourself do not know the answer. Because the day that your students can answer is the day that you can tell that you have crème de la crème. Bukan calang-calang pelajar. Masa tu lah you nak naik you punya boost tu. You punya apa? It's a nice feeling to be in UNISA, because I created this, I developed this particular kind of students. So it needs to be prospective orientation, bukan retrospective orientation. Sekarang ni retrospective. You ajar, lepas tu you tanya apa yang you dah ajar. So apa yang dia buat ialah dia muntahkan balik apa yang you dah ajar. Retrospective. But prospective, you don't know. So sekali-sekala, I'm not asking you to do it every week, at least sekali dalam sepanjang hayat you, lontarkanlah soalan yang you pun tak tahu apa jawapan dia. Tapi berkaitanlah dengan you punya kursus. Janganlah pergi tanya soalan yang tak ada kaitan dengan kursus you. Still ada kaitan dengan kursus you, but it's actually solving real world problems. Right. Sebab tu kita kata we cannot teach and assess our students the way our forefathers did. Even though you can say that, oh, I'm actually a professor now, or emeritus. Dulu my lecturer letak tangan dalam pocket, tanya soalan-soalan yang susah-susah yang kita nak kena hafal. Look at what I am today. Bila orang tanya macam tu, I pernah ditanyalah masa bagi training. Yang tanya tu Professor Emeritus from the School of Law. Can you imagine? So I'm macam, yes Prof, you ask the question, and you answered it yourself. So dia kata, when did I answer my question? Well, you said long time ago. Long time ago, if the student fail from the university, second year kena tendang, second year they left the university, can they become an officer? Long time ago. Answer is yes. Now, first class student, first class honors, can you guarantee them a job? He didn't answer that question. Because he knew that if he answered, habislah dia punya reputation as Professor Emeritus saying that where I am today. Tapi after the session, he came to me, Fauziah, I don't agree with you, but I'm thinking what you're saying. So I told him, Prof, the fact that you are thinking what I'm saying, half of my battle is won. Because you're thinking. You don't have to agree with me. The day that you understand what this whole notion is all about, you will know what to do. But I'm trying, basically what I'm trying to tell him is, you tak boleh lah compare diri you dengan pelajar-pelajar you. Sebab tu soalan-soalan yang you pernah ditanya, janganlah tanya kepada pelajar you. Sebab soalan-soalan tu mungkin dah lapuk di zaman. Dah tak relevan dah. That's why you have to ask now in respect of what's happening right now. Sebab itulah kadang-kadang soalan-soalan tu you pun tak tahu jawapan dia. Sebab tu kalau betul-betul tak tahu jawapan, kena pergilah Lisanya. Ya, kalau tak ada, kena buatlah sesuatu. That's why we need to have clear goals. Clear goals means you understand your CLO. We need to ensure that students collaborate, because in the workplace, do they work alone? No. Care and compassion. You are not here as an educator to fail your students. Your mission in the institution of higher learning is to inspire them. To inspire, you need to educate them. In order to educate, you need to guide them. To guide them, you need to listen to them. You need to let them tell you what they're thinking. Then only you can guide. Kalau tidak, you tak boleh guide. So care and compassion kena ada. Soalan, I suka soalan macam tu. If the class is 100 students and all that, I am telling you, I pernah jadi mentor kepada one lecturer ni, baru dia nak sah dalam jawatan. Dia mengajar matematik pengurusan. Students masuk dalam kelas tu, dia dah kata dah, saya masuk kelas ni untuk fail. Sebab hanya dewa-dewa sahaja yang akan pass. Okay, so dia dah tahu dah, they are going to go in fail. You boleh nampak tau, minit masuk je semua orang. The psychology of failing is a burden to them. So you will see certain types of students will sit right at the back, and certain types of students will sit right in front. In between are those yang biasa-biasa, yang pretend-pretend, yang konon-konon macam harap-harapnya betul lah kali ini. Dia macam harap-harap, dia banyak harap-harap. Okay? So I cakap, yang pensyarah ni sampai menangis dekat I sebab bagus dia ajar matematik pengurusan tu. I rasa macam very interesting sebab dia punya PowerPoint dah lah cantik. Lepas tu dia mengajar dengan case-case studinya. Dia ajar macam mana formula tu digunakan dalam keadaan real world. Bagus dah tu. Tapi masalahnya, dia yang tanya, dia yang jawab. Okay, sebab pada dia, student tak tahu, so dia kena tunjuk dulu. So dia tunjuklah, dia tunjuk. Jadi budak-budak ni semua, especially yang tengah-tengah tu, yang biasa-biasa je, kerja dia pun menyalin je. Yang kat depan tu kadang-kadang tanyalah juga. Kadang-kadang. Tapi yang tengah-tengah tu tak tanya dah, dia salin je. Yang belakang tu pas kuaci, pas asam, walaupun lelaki. How do I know? I duduk belakang mereka. And mereka ingat I ni repeat. Sebab masa tu I muda sikit lah kan. So nampaklah macam ni repeat kali ke-12 kot kan. Dia kata, kak, nak kak? Saya cakap, tak payah. Teruskan. So I pun pecah kepala nak fikir, kesian sebab I rasa macam sedih dekat pensyarah ni. I nampak dia punya effort, tetapi effort dia tu tak kesampaian kepada pelajar dia. Dan pelajar dia tu pun, I tak boleh nak marah kat pelajar tu sebab dia memang dah tak faham kan. Sebab dia tak dapat buat. dalam kelas yang 3 jam tu, tak ada sekali pun dia menjawab soalan. Dia hanya menyalin dan tengok cara orang jawab selesai masalah. Dia tengok cara orang selesai masalah. Dan dia tahu macam mana nak guna formula tu dalam keadaan dunia sebenar. Semua tu dia tahu. Tapi dia nak buat sendiri, dia tak tahu. Sedangkan masa kuis, ada pensyarah tu nak tunjuk? Tak ada. So pensyarah tu menangis sebab kuis 2 orang je yang pas. So menangis kawan tu. Dia kata saya tak tahu. Sebab dia menangis sebab dia tension dah. Takut mentor dia bagi dia fail. Tak boleh sah dalam jawatan. So kita macam tahu dah nak buat apa. Cakap relax. I pun tak tahu macam mana nak guide you ni. But I pun pening kepala. And finally I realised, okay, the class is big, fine. But how can I make sure that every single one of them do the calculation? So I cakap, okay, tomorrow I'm going to buy 1 ream of paper. So I asked her to distribute two papers each. Sebab kita dekat dalam bilik kuliah tu ada visualizer. So dia pun boleh tulis and tunjuk dekat visualizer kan. So I cakap, okay, lepas ni kan, you tunjuk dekat I dulu, you punya PowerPoint. So dia tunjuklah PowerPoint dia ni. Saya cakap, okay, kat sini you jangan tunjuk dekat mereka. You bagi je soalan tu, you jangan tunjuk dekat mereka macam nak buat. You suruh mereka buat. Boleh ke kak? Dia tanya kat I, boleh ke? Saya cakap, tak kira, boleh ke tak boleh. Kita tengok dulu, kita pun tak tahu. So, dia start buat lah. Selama ni kelas dia macam ni lah. You can drop a pin except for orang yang belakang tu, dia pun macam, nak sikit tak, nak sikit. Masa tu lepas raya kot, dia pun duk pas kuih raya kat belakang tu. Duk tanya nak sikit ke nak sikit. The rest are just like paying attention, writing down, very quiet. Good. Kira macam kalau cikgu dia seronok lah sebab tak payah, tak ada gangguan. The minute dia kata, okay, now 10 minutes for you to solve the problem. 1 paper is for you to solve the problem. The other paper to write as big as possible the answer. That's what I asked her to do. 1 paper is for the answer. The other paper is to write the calculation. So dia pun suruh budak tu buat. Tahu tak, dia punya hari tu, selalunya dia duduk dekat depan je. The rostrum, dia duduk dekat depan je. Hari tu, you rasa dia duduk kat mana? Kat mana? Merata-rata sebab semua orang duk tanya, especially yang tengah. Yang biasa-biasa tu, depa tu yang tanya banyak, yang tengah-tengah. Puan, datanglah sini. Macam manalah saya nak datang? It's like susah dia nak pergi kan. Tapi dia punya meraih, dia punya keprihatinan sebab dia risau. Lepas 10 minit, dia akan panggil siapa-siapa saja. Kalau dia tak tahu macam nak buat, malu kawan-kawan. Nampak tak? Peer pressure. Good. So akhirnya, dia kena ni lah. Oh, I seronok masa tu. Masa tu A++. Sebab pembelajaran berlaku. Kelas sangat bising. Masa tu semua orang nak tanya, betul ke? Salah ni. Lepas tu cakap, okay, lepas cukup je 10 minit, you suruh dia tunjuk dia punya jawapan. So dia tunjuklah. Tu I kata, the day that orang belakang dapat betul, you panggil orang tu ke depan. Dia kata, kenapa kak? Tak apa, you dengar je cakap I. Lepas tu adalah seorang, yang dapat betul. Yang tu is the leader of the pack. Okay? The leader of the pack is actually very, very clever. It's just that also known as very, very malas. I know this. Never mind, kita relax. And dia very famous sebab masuk je orang dah book tempat untuk dia. Dia kena ada station, tempat untuk dia. Memang betul-betul taikor lah. So dia datang, dia nak jalan pun macam, aku dipanggil hari ni, okay, macam tu. Tapi yang lawaknya, dia punya tulisan punya lah halus, zoom lah macam mana pun, visualizer tu tak nampak. Jadi bila tak nampak, dia kena tulis balik dia punya mathematical description tu. So dia buat the first line, the second line, he missed the third line. He caused havoc in the whole entire hall. The middle ones didn't know what was happening. It was the frontliners yang salah lah yang kau buat tu. Dia kena cenin-cenin, kau tersilap ni. Sabar. Dia dah cakap sabar. Lepas tu dia buat lagi. Lepas tu ada lagi orang marah-marah. Dekat nak 20 minit. Yang this pensyarah ni dah nak mula nak masuk dah. Yang I kata tunggu, jangan kacau. And finally he managed through lah. It was 30 minutes for him to actually tell them what to do. Do you know when the education began? When he turned around and said something to the pensyarah. I was sitting right at the back and I was like curious, apa dia cakap dekat pensyarah ni ya? Habis je kelas, I jadi kepoci. Apa dia cakap dekat you? Dia kata, puan, saya nak minta maaf. Sebab hari ni baru saya tahu betapa susahnya nak jadi pensyarah kat depan. Saya minta maaf kerana saya tak pernah pun pay attention. I tell you, that day, after that day, I wanted to sit and kot-kot lah dia nak hantar kuih raya. Sebab masa tu, I dah mula rasa seronok nak makan lah. No more. Dia pun nak bagi kuih raya, dia siap marah. Hey, pay attention. So if the sifu says pay attention, they really have to listen. And from that day onwards, she had every time when she had questions saja, it was time for you to answer the question. After you dah answer, baru I tunjuk if I need to tunjuk. Kalau tak, you yang akan tunjuk. I'm just going to verify. So if you ask me, her class was 150. Ni matematik, dia campur. 120 tu was good students. 30 of students, semua tu repeat. Terpaksa masuk dalam kelas dia. Okay, yang nak masuk dalam kelas dia sebab dia yang paling baik. Yang lecturer yang lain tu, garang. Yang jenis yang dewa sahaja yang akan dapat A, and the rest of you, go away. You come in late, I'm going to lock the door. Dia macam tak kisahlah, masuklah janji nak belajar. So dalam kelas dia adalah orang yang duduk dekat kaki 5 sebab tak cukup tempat. Tapi on that day yang kaki 5 tu pun sama naik berdiri sebab nak buat dengan kawan-kawan dia. So if you're asking me 150 cannot be done, she has proven to me that in a class of a maths lecture, equivalent to a maths lecture, you can still do student-centered learning. Students are still learning. And the best part of it, students learn beyond the curriculum. They learn the ethics of becoming an ilmuwan. Orang yang nak belajar, jangan tak dengar guru. Sampai dia boleh minta maaf puan. Sebab baru hari ni saya tahu betapa seksa ni. Sebab 30 minit nak suruh kawan-kawan dia sabar. And the best part of it, kawan-kawannya yang kat tengah-tengah tu, bila tengok yang kat depan tu dah mula tanya, dia pun mula nak tanya. Tak faham lah, tak faham. Repeat. Kenapa? Dia dah mula nak tanya kenapa. Jadi kawan boleh tanya dekat kawan bila dia tak faham. Dia nak tanya dekat pensyarah, dia segan. Itu reflection yang my mentee ni. Sebab tu mentee tu A++ lah. Memang deserve distinguished award lah. Belum lagi lah, I duk pujuk dia suruh buat distinguished award, tak lepas-lepas lagi. Sebab semua orang malas nak buat portfolio. Okay, I think I've come to the end. I think, although there are some more slides, but basically what I've said is what is there. You know, you begin with the right intention. You don't want to leave any of your students behind. You make sure that they talk to you through their presentation so that you can see what is in their mind. And you make sure that their roh and their jasad is with you, just like the case of that student. Roh and jasad tu dah mula ada perubahan, then you'll never go wrong. That's what it means by educating the heart, educating the head, educating the hand. So you're not just teaching your course. You are actually having an opportunity for you to teach your students to do good, to feel good, to understand and to think how to become good. So seize that moment. So this is what you have to do, challenge thinking to make meaning. This happened to me when I was teaching undergraduate students, 2001. Suruh mereka malas nak baca buku, geram I. So apa cara nak suruh mereka baca buku? Suruh mereka buat mind map. Masa tu anak-anak I kecil lagi. So you know the wrapper, bukan wrapper, apa tu? Kotak cereal tu, saya tak buang, saya potong, bagi setiap seorang pelajar. Dalam kelas saya ada dalam lebih kurang 50 orang. Bagi setiap seorang satu. Suruh mereka tulis apa sahajalah dalam mind you about this course, tulis je lah. So mereka pun tulis. Tapi janji bila dia tulis, dia kena bagi tahu kat semua orang. Semua orang tak boleh ambil apa yang dia buat. Pakat semua orang berebut nak cakap dulu sebab mereka tak tahu kan. So yang mana yang tak tahu dah habis dah, I don't have any idea, I bagi Chan untuk dia nak buka buku 5 saat saja untuk nak cari apa pun di dalam buku. Buku ada tapi tak pernah baca. So lepas dia dah tulis dah, dia ingat dah selesai lah dia punya aktiviti. I kata okay, sekarang tolak semua meja ke belakang. The floor is yours. Seorang datang ke depan, letak apa yang you tulis tu, yang the rest of you start figuring out how is that related to the other other components. Siapa yang nak kena, apa kaitan dia dengan orang lain? Tu tengah bergaduh lah tu. Seorang tengah bergaduh nak convince orang lain, yang satu orang ni tengah berfikir, yang seorang ni tugas dia lah susun je. Dia tak nak fikir. So challenge thinking. Collaborative learning during problem solving. You know, have that moment where they can actually solve the problem together. And make sure that it is actually related to the real world. And the way forward is to prepare a truly this is actually the way forward to prepare a truly developed and advanced nation. Only then you will do your bit, which is actually to prepare our future generation to not only love learning, but they know what they need to do when they're learning. So design for learning to take place. That's why you need to understand your students. You need to understand your CLO. You need to understand how to make sure that they have a go at activating those CLOs. And then you assess them accordingly and in an interesting way so that it makes assessment worthwhile for them. And if you're not sure yourself, well, you have to improve yourself lah. Either go for the training or continue to read and get information. Mediate learning that's what I'm doing. Mediate learning is basically scaffolding learning. That means your task is actually to guide them, right, and inspire them. And of course, do the right thing no matter how difficult and challenging it is. Because doing student-centered learning and alternative assessment requires people who are committed to and have creative thinking, becoming creative and critical thinking. So if you want to walk the talk, challenge yourself. Do that in order for you to develop future creative thinkers and critical thinkers. Because if you have that, no matter what the challenges are ahead of them, they know what to do. Thank you. Do I have time for questions? This is where I count 10, 9, 8. Habis tak ada 10 seconds tak ada soalan? Yay, thank you. Soalan? Yes, please.
Okay, saya Zul Azhan dari FBK. Okay, soalan saya Puan, Prof, sorry. Adakah apabila kita menggunakan alternative assessment, keputusan pelajar itu akan ramai pelajar akan dapat A? Dan macam mana kita nak mengelak perkara itu, kerana kadang-kadang ada timbul isu apabila ramai pelajar yang dapat A akan ada masalah lah di Senate dan sebagainya. Terima kasih.
Right. Ramai orang dapat A atau tak dapat A itu bukan pasal alternative assessment. Ramai orang dapat A atau tak dapat A itu ialah apa yang you buat untuk bagi mereka dapat A. Kalau you buat banyak formative assessment before dia buat summative assessment, dan you ada bukti menunjukkan bahawa pada macam tadi, macam student, macam kawan I buat tu lah, masa the first time dia buat 9/10 and then 2/10 and 5/10 and finally at the end masa dia betul-betul nak buat summative assessment baru dia rate dia as 7/10 misal kata. Maybe 7/10 bila campur-campur dengan yang lain-lain dapat jugalah A. Kalau tak A pun A minus. So still masalah juga dengan Senate kan, sebab janji nampak A je dia pun macam asal semua orang A ni kan. Pada I, kalau you you dah prepare your students to achieve the outcome, that's the standard. If you have achieved the outcome and you have evidence to show, you shouldn't be afraid. And you shouldn't negate your students from getting the A simply because of the bell curve. Because the bell curve is for the norm reference, sedangkan OBE is for the criterion reference. Norm reference maksudnya macam SPM, STPM, kita tak tahu siapa yang nak buat soalan, kita tahu orang yang ajar lain, orang yang nak buat soalan lain, orang yang nak mark lagi lain. So jadi dia akan pukul rata. Sebab tu kadang-kadang kohort pertama you rasa macam kenapa I ajar calculus daripada dulu, kini dan selamanya. Kenapa calculus macam tahun ni semua orang pandai, tahun lepas semua orang macam teruk. Sebab norm reference. Bila dia norm reference, kena ada 20% yang dapat A, kena ada balance yang middle, yang kena ada juga orang-orang yang akan fail. Jadi pada tahun itu, kalau dia punya cohort dia tu biasa-biasa, maka nak dapat A untuk AdMaths pada ketika itu is 65%. Boleh dapat A because the highest is 65. Compared to another cohort yang mungkin makan banyak ikan kot, I don't know, suddenly dia punya cut off point semua orang boleh dapat 70 lebih and the highest is actually 95. So of course dia punya bell curve tu akan naik. Faham tak maksud saya? The bell curve tu akan ada, tapi sama ada dia tinggi atau rendah, itu depends on the orang yang akan ambil ujian tu lah. Itu norm reference. Tapi kalau criterion reference, maksudnya you dah set kriteria tu, you dah kata dah semester 2 pelajar-pelajar ni boleh buat yang ni. Kan? Itu standard. You dah set dia sebagai kriteria. Sebab you ada lagi semester lain dan kursus-kursus lain yang akan cater untuk the other parts of the program, of the level of cognitive tu. So kalau your students fulfill because you did a lot of formative assessment, you shouldn't be worried about SENET. You should just bring your file yang ada you punya evidence tu when the SENET ask. Yang masalah dia sekarang ialah kita bagi markah kesian. Bila kita timbang kati kan, nampak projek dia tulis 20 muka surat, betul lah tu. Yang tu yang I kata tu, buat quiz you tak baca pun, buat banyak projek you tak baca pun, you tak bagi feedback pun. Kalau yang itu memang berbahaya. Kalau I jadi ahli SENET, memang I akan tanya, atas dasar apa? Di manakah evidence? Sebab tu bila I jadi dekan, dalam I punya pusat pengajian, satu-satunya yang ada jawatan kuasa penaksiran. Tugas jawatan kuasa tu ialah not only vet soalan, tetapi selepas dah habis dah, dia berhak untuk tanya kepada pensyarah, kalau ada ramai yang dapat A, mana evidence? Show me. Jadi pensyarah pun dah mula takut nak bagi A saja. Sebab nak bagi A itu adalah suatu kezaliman kalau you bagi A itu kepada orang yang tak sepatutnya dapat. Sebab dia terpaksa menanggung beban yang dia tak sanggup tanggung. You bayangkan dia dapat A, lepas tu dia tak tahu macam nak jawab. Orang akan tanya, Uniza ni macam mana comparatively to other universities? Kan? Dah terpalit dekat Uniza. Tak ada kena-mengena. Sebab dia bukan bawa diri dia je. Dia bawa dia dan alma mater dia. Sebab tu, only give A when they deserve it. But when they deserve it, do not negate them because of the bell curve. Itu pun zalim. I kena hashtag my opinion. Yes.
Saya Fahmi daripada Fakulti Biosumber Industri Makanan. Saya penyelaras latihan industri. Jadi saya rasa untuk food tech baru tahun pertama kita buat penilaian bergrade. Sebelum ni dia lulus gagal. Jadi bila lulus gagal tak dikira lah dalam CGPA semua tu kan. Jadi bila buat bergrade, jadi pertama kali saya berjumpa dengan semua A, dan dalam penilaian tu kita ada beberapa bahagian komponen lah. Maksudnya penilaian pada penilai industri, akademik, kemudian logbook dan sebagainya lah. Tapi bila kita tunjukkan markah semua A tu, jadi dia overall dia menyebabkan kenaikan CGPA pelajar lah kan. Maksudnya daripada pelajar yang mungkin ada grade yang berbeza sebelum ni, bila semua A tu naik grade daripada semua. Ya, so jadi satu bukanlah isu nak menjawab sangat sebenarnya, tapi saya ada concern lah tentang apa penilaian terbaik sebenarnya untuk latihan industri itu supaya dia boleh bergrade, tapi bagaimana sebenarnya penilaian tu?
Decide tu jadi grade yang tak grade tu tiba-tiba pasal masa dalam tempoh COVID ni ke memang dah ada perancangan? I faham, tapi masa dia dah ke arah ke situ, dia tiba-tiba nak suruh tukar arah je ke ataupun memang dia terarah? Maksudnya dia ada sebab musabab dia ada dia punya standard dia. Sebab bila you tukar lulus gagal kepada grade, you dah tetapkan standard. bila dah tetapkan standard, you ada behavior dan benda-benda lah yang knowledge yang you dah tetapkan. Ada ke tak? Yang itulah benda yang you nak kena cari. The minute you know whether there is a standard, that A means what, B means what, C means what, and so on and so forth, then you can tally dengan dia punya evidence yang dia buat dalam dia punya report tu. Correct, of course. Of course. Remember, your rubric is your tool for measurement, right? It must tally to your CLO. Sebab tu kalau kita tak boleh suka-suka hati je, wah semalam lulus gagal kan, jujurlah kita tukar je lah ABCD. Tak boleh. Dia nak tukar ke ABCD tu maksudnya daripada asalnya fail or pass to now standard. You have macam, maksud saya standard tu ialah dia kena ada tingkah laku dan knowledge dia, performance dia untuk dia nak mengiyakan dia tu sepatutnya layak dapat A dan layak dapat B dan sebagainya. So selagi kita tak ada that indicator, of course everybody can dapat A. Janji dia pergi latihan industri je. Pergilah lihat latihan industri. Sebab asalnya dulu macam tu. Pergi latihan industri, tak pernah ponting kerja, A, lulus. Selalu ponting, kena marah dengan penyelia gagal. Itulah. Jadi tak boleh bila tukar kepada grade, you guna performance yang sama, indikator yang sama. Pasal itulah semua orang dapat A. Sebab penyelia pun tak tahu nak bagi macam mana. So penyelia kata, I don't have any complaints. The majikan dekat dalam tempat kerja dia pun tak pernah marah. I pun tengok dekat dia main walaupun dia bancuh kopi, tak ada kena-mengena dengan dia punya food tag. Tapi bancuh kopi kot lah dia kopi yang bagus dia bancuh, tak tahulah kan. So you realize that since I have no problem, they don't have a problem, luluslah A lah. Because kita tak maklumkan kepada penilai bahawa kita ada grade sekarang ni. Bila kita ada grade, kita ada dia punya skill dia, kita ada tingkah laku dia, kita ada knowledge dia. Sebab orang industri dengan kita sama je. Kebanyakan kita nak kena lalui latihan baru kita faham macam mana nak menilai orang. Sebab tak ada siapa ajar dekat kita cara untuk menilai. Kan? So kita pun rasa macam teruknya 90. Teruk 90. Maksudnya kalau tak teruk entah 150 kot. Kan? Because we are never trained to evaluate. So that's why we need the training for evaluation lah. Maksudnya how do you evaluate? Sama juga dengan industri juga. Untuk dia faham macam mana dia nak evaluate related to the course learning outcome yang you dah set rubrik dia tu. Bukan dia evaluate based on dia ni bancuh kopi elok tak sebelum I minta ke selepas I minta. Sepatutnya. Macam ours, when we had that problem too, we swap. So ours is 80%, dia punya 20%. Because nak ajar pula dekat industri tu dia akan kata macam ini bukan kerja I. Setengah industri macam tu. Kalau you dapat industri yang memang bagus, yang memang nak bantu pelajar, alhamdulillah. Sebab takut kita dapat yang macam ni yang bukankah ini kerja you? I hanya menerima pelajar je dekat dalam ni. I menerima ni pun dah cukup bagus lah. Dia dah keluar perkataan-perkataan tu, maka lepas tu kami buat pun 80-20 lah. Tak apalah, you buatlah apa-apa yang patut. It's going to be 20%. 80% is still ours. At the end of the day, what is your goal? You nak apa sebenarnya masa dia pergi latihan industri tu? Daripada situlah baru kita create the course learning outcome. Lepas kita dah create course learning outcome, macam mana kita nak daripada course learning outcome tu pula jadikan rubrik? Daripada rubrik tu pula kita nak tengok standard-standard dia. Kalau low macam mana? Exemplary macam mana?
Saya pun memang Saya pun memang lecturer barulah. Jadi untuk rubrik ni mungkin kadang-kadang kita nampak pelbagai jenis rubrik yang ada kan. Contoh untuk komponen yang berbeza dalam latihan industri tu pun rubrik tu berbeza-beza sebab dibuat mungkin ada tim-tim tertentu yang buat kan. Jadi bentuk rubrik pun berbeza. Ada yang dalam bentuk skala, good and yang worst lah contoh kan. Tapi tak ada pun karakteristik apa benda huraian untuk setiap tu. Ada yang rubrik yang macam Prof tunjuk tadi tu dengan ciri-ciri kalau good tu apa dan sebagainya, macam how it relates to the CLO kan. So macam mana sebenarnya rubrik yang terbaik lah untuk nak buat?
Dia tak ada jawapan yang jelas sebab memang rubrik tu ada, sekarang ni dia kata ada 3. Asalnya dia ada 2. Satu kita panggil holistic rubric, the other one is analytic rubric. Yang saya tunjuk tu ialah analytic rubric. Analytic rubric ni bagus jika kita tak ada masa nak bagi tahu dekat semua orang apa sebenarnya yang kita nak suruh pelajar tu nilai. Jadi melalui dia tengok setiap komponen tu, dia tahu dah ciri-ciri apa yang dia patutnya tengok. Cuma masalah dengan analytic rubric tu, dia tak boleh hari ni you buat, besok you nak guna. Dia kena macam you buat, you tunjuk, you share, you perbetul sampai you rasa macam betul-betul dia menggambarkan apa hasrat you, intention you yang sebenarnya, barulah you rasa macam, itu kita panggil validating process. Baru kita boleh betul-betul guna lah. The other one is holistic, yang saya rasa yang saya kira yang dia kosong-kosong tu ialah holistic. Holistic tu macam ikut suka hati you lah. 1 hingga 3 ialah lemah, 4 sampai 6 ialah sederhana, 7 ke atas ialah bagus. So kalau saya rasa macam bagus, 7. Sangat bagus, 10. Kan? So kalau kita nak dia selalunya dia letak kosong, ruang kosong. Ruang kosong maksudnya kita kena letak lah. Kalau kita tak 10, maksudnya sangat bagus kerana dia ada justifikasi dia kenapa dia letak. Cuma yang itu sangat bagus you, macam tadi itulah. Sangat bagus you dengan sangat bagus dia, very subjektif. Dia punya sangat bagus, komplain banyak-banyak, 10. You punya sangat bagus, 7. Sangat bagus, 7. Tu 10 tu dewa-dewa. Orang takkan dapat. Sebab dia kata very unlikely for anyone to get 10 over 10. You know, it's like you're perfect. So why create 10? You see my point? Macam itulah. Okay, saya rasa nanti you tak dapat makan nasi dagang ke, I tak tahu apa yang you punya menu. Unless you have urgent question that you want to ask and without asking you can't sleep. Ni banyak soalan belah sini pula, tadi sini yang senyap. Sini, bagi peluang. Semua okay? Everything is alright? I hope I managed to not only tell you what alternative assessment is, but also motivate you to make sure that we really need to understand why we are here. We are here not to condemn our students. We are here not to tell them how clever we are and how not clever they are. That's not what you are here. That's why you are not working in the supervisor. As a supervisor in the company, you can tell them, apalah, you macam ni punya kerja pun tak boleh buat. You're not a supervisor. You are an educator. Walaupun you kata, I am an insinyur. Insinyur yang dia panggil tu. I tak tahu, IR tu dia panggil macam? I tak tahu lah, never get it right tu nak sebutkan IR tu kan. Dia kata, tapi you kerja kat mana? Kalau dia kata, Yuniza, sorry, deep down in your DNA, you are an educator. If you are lucky, you will create more insinyurs. But deep down in your DNA, you are an educator. Unless you tell me you kerja dekat kilang mana-mana, or betul, do whatever that you need to do. But because you're an educator, if you don't have the skills of an educator, go for the training. Don't ask them to wait until you come. You serah tengkok you to go. You need to know what you know and what you don't know. You need to improve your skills. Because it's not easy to become an educator. If you cannot motivate yourself, if you don't understand why you are here, how can you make your students understand why they are there? One last story. Dekat Unimas, when I interviewed one student, I tanya kat dia buat marine biology ke apa entah. I kalau tahu lah zaman dulu, I buat marine biology. Tanya kat dia, you buat kursus apa? Marine biology. Masa you, when you applied, did you apply for marine, was it like from the womb that you decided to become marine biologist? No. I never thought of becoming a marine biologist. I thought I put it there for the show. They asked me to fulfill the 12. I had to fulfill the 12. I I didn't know what marine biology is. I thought it was just biology. So can you imagine, first was doctor. From doctor turun sampai jadi marine biology. You know, I don't know what happened, tapi mungkinlah sebab dekat Unimas tu tak ada siapa kot. So siapa yang pilih Unimas tu semua terus masuk dapat. Agaknya lah, walaupun dia sebenarnya keputusan dia sangat bagus untuk dia nak jadi doktor. Okay, so tahap frustration dia in the first semester is boundless. I don't like the university, I don't like the program, I don't know why I'm here, I don't like the food, I don't like the people, don't like. Semua don't like. I just hope kalau Lani Afi jumpa dia tanya, silap hari bulan kahwin dengan orang sana kan. Bila tanya dekat dia, okay, what happened? What happened now? Dulu you kata macam tu, now I am so glad that Allah sent me here. Dia cakap, can you tell me why? Because in my fourth semester, in my second semester, I met this one lecturer, ajar sepatutnya introduction, katalah, I can't remember dia punya course tu. Katalah introduction to marine biology. If it's introduction to marine biology, usually mereka akan buat apa? Oh, you on terror lah. Selalunya introduction to marine biology selalunya teori lah, right? Teori you tak bawa lah ke laut, especially second semester. Duduk dalam bilik yang aircon ni cakap lah pasal all the marine, tunjuk slide-slide yang lawa-lawa and all that, right? But this particular lecturer brought the students to the laut, not only to the laut, inside the laut to actually look at all the things, padahal baru belajar introduction to marine biology. Dekat situlah baru dia kata, ya Allah bestnya ni baru second semester. Saya tanya kat pensyarah tu lagi, kita memang kena buat macam ni je ke selalu? Ada sebenarnya yang you kena buat ni masa you fourth semester. Tak sabarnya nak pergi fourth semester, nampak tak? Yang sepatutnya dia ajar ialah pengenalan. Tapi yang dia tengok tu lebih daripada mengenal. Dia dah mengenal, dah rasa cinta dah dengan makhluk-makhluk yang ada dekat dalam laut tu. Masa dia second semester. Can you be that? When you meet your students in the first semester, inspire them sampai dia pun tak terfikirlah nak ambil khusus apa? Food tech. Ya Allah, pasal apalah aku ambil food tech ni? Memanglah aku suka makan, tapi tak pernah lah nak terfikir. You know, tak terfikir nak buat food tech. Tapi sampai bila dia ambil food tech, baru dia nampak, ya Allah ya Tuhanku, I can become a millionaire if I learn about food tech. I can actually advise Datin Vida, whatever her name is, that only your kuih putih can sell. I can sell you makanan that can make you really look beautiful. You know what? You see what I mean? Dia boleh nampak dah ke mana hala tujuan dia. Daripada dia duduk marah, I don't like the university because it's near the laut. I come from Johor, nak pergi dekat Terengganu punya lah jauh, contoh. Worst still, dia datang dari Sabah Sarawak, tak apa, dia pun suka. Yang Johor, you know, KL, nak main Terengganu, nak naik bas 2-3 kali. Semua tu dia akan menyampah-menyampah lah. Kan? Lepas tu kena pula duduk dekat dalam hostel yang tak samalah bintangnya dengan bilik dia. Bilik dia 5 bintang, pergi kat hostel dia 2 bintang. Memanglah tiap-tiap minggu kalau boleh dia nak balik. So kalau you tak cuit hati dia untuk nak lihat apa sebenarnya yang ada dekat not only UNESA but what is in the course that will help them understand their existence, make them change that Terengganu is sentiasa di hatiku. And on top of that is UNESA. Itu dia. You have that power. But your power yang you nak jaga sangat-sangat, tak nak bagi dekat mereka tu, yang tu you release. Let them have a go. Don't just pegang the mic like what I'm doing right now. Let them have a go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and your patience. I wish you well, whatever that's good. Ada lagi? Oh.
I was asked many times lah, boleh ke alternative assessment ni ganti dengan final exam? Sebab diorang ni macam beranggapan, saya awal-awal lah, macam alternative assessment ni macam part of the CONAS sahaja. So boleh ke kalau alternative assessment kita gantikan sebagai final exam? Saya rasa boleh.
Itulah jawapan. Okay, Senang je. Kalau you buat final exam pun, macam mana you nak tahu sama ada final exam tu sebenarnya bagus ke tak? Sebab kalau you tanya soalan yang tak betul, walaupun ada markah, garbage in, garbage out. The reason why the final exam is a good exam is because you've got a good question. So the reason why an alternative assessment can be as good as the final exam is when you are clear of your CLO. The minute you are clear of your CLO, is related to the CLO, you can tell that it's got nothing to do with other things except for the CLO, achieving the standard. Who are they to tell you that alternative assessment tak boleh ganti final exam? You now can debate to them, how sure are you that those questions are good questions in the final exam? Sebab sekarang ni kita hidup dalam dunia yang kita dah biasa dengan final exam. Sedangkan kalau saya tanyalah dekat semua orang ni, berapa orang yang selama hidup dia dekat dalam dunia higher education ni buat item analysis? How many of you of your final exam questions? Pernah buat? Angkat tangan. Item analysis. Not JSU. Every question. What do you do in your item analysis?
Actually berapa markah student dapat based on CLO and so on, then we have to punya mark. Bila dia automatic Excel tu calculate everything lah, dia pencapaian for the student. So based on tu kita beritahu lah outcome dia capai ke tak, or based on the question.
Untuk outcome. Saya tanya ni, item dia tu, you buat tak item analysis? Untuk you nak tahu item tu is a good item, bad item, need to do something about the item. Pernah buat? Pernah buat? Kalau jawapan dia yes, which I dengar satu daripada beratus ni, bagus. Okay, can you make sure that everybody inside here do it as well? Because if a final exam, kalau 20 tahun you guna set soalan yang tu saja, sebab you je yang mengajar khusus tu. Kan? Pencennya you, masalah Finiza. Nak mencari orang yang akan mengajar khusus tu, sebab soalan tu semua dalam kepala you. Memang tiap-tiap tahun you je lah yang set soalan. Tapi masalahnya tiap-tiap tahun tak pernah pun you buat item analysis. You have never done item analysis. You do not know that question is a good question, strong question, weak question, need to do something about the question. Good question, what does that mean? All your students, whether they are good or bad, can answer the questions. That is as good as a bonus question. In assessment, in all fairness, that is a bad question. Should throw it away. A good question is when you can differentiate between a good student and a bad student. Need to change or need to adapt is when the bad student can answer the question, the good student cannot. Yang tu you kena tengok 3 benda. Satu ialah, betulkah dia relate kepada CLO or the course? Takut yang tu you ambil daripada siapa-siapa punya kursus entah. Kita ni seronok ambil daripada orang lain punya soalan. Sebab kita tak yakin dengan kepandaian kita. Itulah saya kata, masalah dengan orang Malaysia ni ialah keyakinan. Sebab tu rubrik pun kalau boleh dia nak cari orang lain punya. Lepas tu dia komplain pasal apa student tak capai rubrik tu. Sebab tu orang lain punya. Dia ikut CLO dia. You ikut pasal apa? You know, so you have to be clear of what you want from that particular question. So if your bad students can answer the question, your good students cannot answer the questions, either the item is not right, the stem is not right. Stem tu maksudnya instruction dia tu, itu pun tak kena, mengelirukan. Maksudnya orang yang tahu akan keliru, orang yang tak tahu tu memang tak akan keliru, sebab dia memang dah keliru daripada awal dah. So dia memang A, B, C, D je ikut. Kalau MCQ kan ikut suka hati je. Rasa macam A gua, sekarang ni A. So A, you know, dia macam rasa kan. The next is actually to look at the option. Option dia tu mungkin juga mengelirukan. Mungkin ada 2 jawapan yang sama. So kalau kita tak pernah buat item analysis, itu cara I nak jawab. Kalau kita tak pernah buat item analysis, our final exam is as catastrophe as what you think the alternative assessment is. In all good faith, either final exam ke, alternative assessment ke, kalau dia tak ikut CLO, tak tanya soalan yang betul-betul, yang tidak mengelirukan, semua dah okey dah, dia memang untuk fairness, Tak ada apa pun membezakan alternative assessment and the normal final assessment. Faham Tapi nak jawab tu you kena ada data lah. Kalau you tak pernah buat, memanglah dia akan dry. Akan disalai lah. Sebab bila ditanya soalan tu kan, alternative assessment you buat macam mana. Tapi kalau you boleh kata, oh saya punya CLO ialah yang ni. Dia punya soft skill ialah yang ni. Maka untuk saya punya projek ni ialah untuk CLO yang pertama 20% sebab saya dah spend berapa banyak hours untuk this particular CLO. Itu melayakkan pemberat dia 20% misal kata. Ini adalah dia punya ni. Dan kalau tengok dia punya rubrik macam ni. Cakap kat you, kalau you cakap kat siapa pun, even the auditors pun, dia akan tabik hormat, dia akan kata bagus, sebab dia pun tak buat. Selalunya lah, auditors, they're very good at auditing. Sometimes they don't do what they check other people to do. But usually they will learn from other people. That's their learning process. So do that, then you are clear. Okay? Thank you very much again. Kalau apa yang salah tu memanglah daripada saya sebab saya ni suka kadang-kadang melalut. Yang baik tu daripada Allah, definitely. And apa yang baik tu ambillah supaya dia bermanfaat pada diri you dan juga bermanfaat pada pelajar-pelajar you insya-Allah. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Yang Berusaha Profesor Madya Dr. FAUZIAH Abdul Rahim di atas syarahan yang disampaikan sebentar tadi. Hadirin sekalian, majlis diteruskan dengan menjemput Yang Berusaha Profesor Dr. Harmi Muhammad Yusof, Pengarah Pusat Pengurusan Kecemerlangan Akademik dan Inovasi untuk menyampaikan cenderamata kepada Yang Berusaha Profesor Madya Dr. FAUZIAH Abdul Rahim. Dipersilakan. Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Yang Berusaha Profesor Dr. Harmi Muhammad Yusof. Hadirin semua dijemput untuk sesi bergambar dan mohon perhatian kepada hadirin untuk menggunakan QR code bagi memberikan maklum balas sesi ceramah pada pagi ini. Pautan akan diberi seperti yang dipaparkan di skrin. Mohon semua hadirin ke depan untuk sesi bergambar ya.